Hello and welcome to another video by Econo Insight. This video will discuss about what the gross domestic product is, or otherwise known as the GDP. Some of you might have a brief idea of what is it, but now we're going to introduce a formal definition of it and how to calculate it. So, first, the gross domestic product, known or otherwise known as GDP, has two definitions, right? But the two definitions have exactly the same meaning, only approached from a different angle, seen from a different angle. First definition says this: the GDP is the total expenditure on final goods and services which are produced domestically, right? So this is what we call the expenditure approach. The expenditure approach. So GDP measures the total expenditure, highlight that, on final goods and services. Final goods and services means that it's the end product, yeah? It's not what you call as intermediate goods. I'll explain this further. And after that, which are produced domestically. So that is an important key term there. So this is the expenditure approach. And the second definition is what you call the income approach. The income approach states that GDP is the total income of the population, which are of the factors of production which are located domestically. So these are two definitions, right? But actually they mean the same thing, because here in the first definition it's the expenditure approach and here it's the income approach. And if you think about it, expenditure equals income. If you spend something, that becomes another person's income. That's simple basic logic. Everyone should know that. So hence, that's why the expenditure approach always equals the income approach, right? So, and I mentioned something earlier about final goods, total expenditure on final goods. Final goods means the end product. So a GDP calculation does not include what we know as intermediate goods. It's a fairly simple concept. Intermediate goods are the goods used in between when you're producing something, the intermediate goods are used for production for other goods and services. So imagine a simple example. If, let's say, you were a baker trying to make a cake, then you'll purchase some sugar, and that sugar component will be used to make the cake. So sugar here in that case is the intermediate good. That is not counted. So something like that. Intermediate goods. So intermediate goods are not included. Why? Because this is to prevent double counting. I hope this is very intuitive, actually. Very easy to understand. To prevent double counting. So now let's go on how to calculate the GDP from the expenditure approach. So when you study economics further, when you calculate GDP or apply certain models, this expenditure approach will be seen all throughout normally. So again, expenditure approach is total expenditure on final goods and services which are produced domestically. Expenditure. So this is the formula: y equals c plus I plus g plus nx. What does it mean? So C here stands for consumption. I here stands for investment. G here stands for government spending. And NX stands for net exports. Net exports is essentially exports minus imports. So I'm going to explain this now, what it specifically means. So consumption are the goods and services purchased by households. Investments are spending on capital, which are physical assets. Those are investments. Government spending is essentially government spending on goods and services. However, interestingly, which is very important, that government spending does not include what we know as transfer payments. Transfer payments are basically the government, let's say giving unemployment checks, or maybe there's a certain crisis, the government gives like a check to help the people. When the government gives those checks, those are called transfer payments, right? Basically transferring the money. That is not included as transfer payments, right? That is not counted as government spending. Why? Because these checks then will be used by individuals for consumption. So when the individuals use, let's say, the unemployment check given by the government for consumption, then only then that counts to the GDP, but through the consumption component, not to the government spending component. So government spending is more like is government maybe spending on public infrastructure. That's government spending, right? And net exports is very intuitive. It's exports minus imports, right? And you get net exports. So normally people write NX equals X minus IM. In this case, X is exports and IM is imports. And with all of that, then you get how to calculate the GDPs via the expenditure approach, right? So GDP equals Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helps.